Well, I'm going to the frontier, walk up to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number one. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
The service department at Gala Chevrolet is clean, modern, and ready for you. Our master technicians service every make and model, including certified service on any GM vehicle. Service done right the first time, every time, right here at the all-new Gala Chevrolet.
Car Crafters, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Are you sure we're supposed to be doing this?
Don't worry, I've watched him do it 1,000 times. Come on, what's the worst that could happen?
No! Bad dog!
Hi, welcome to Car Crafters. What happened?
Don't worry, we'll make it like it never happened.
Car Crafters, it's like it never happened.
The Sports Desk is proudly presented by Car Crafters. It's like it never happened.
Welcome everybody here to the Sports Desk here on Proview, Comcast Channel 26 and Facebook Live. We can also be on YouTube after the show each and every week. I'm Scott Galletti, joined by Ed Nunez. We're going to be wrapping things up for the football season and moving forward for the basketball season now. We'll also talk UNM, both football and basketball. A lot of news there as well. Alden Iowani, our fine director, doing what he normally does, a great job, and we've got the crew here. We've got Josh Brown and we have Jason Poole. So the gang is all here and we're ready to have a good show here today. We bring in Ed Nunez, and Ed, well, putting a bow on the football season before we get into the scores and highlights. You had probably one of the best games, the closest game at least, up in Taos.
Well, it started out like it was going to be a high-scoring game because Jonathan Garcia took the opening kickoff for Taos 80 yards. So I'm thinking, wow, this is going to be a high-scoring game. And then the wind, bitter wind out there, about 40 miles an hour, prevented them, either team from passing effectively, although Bloomfield did score on a long touchdown pass from Rogelio Gonzalez to Noah Goudelet, 43 yards in the second quarter. Tied at 7-all, and then it came down to, and I had said this earlier, I said it may come down to a special teams play. Noah Goudelet from Bloomfield whiffed on a punt, and Noah Armijo recovers in the end zone for Taos. The final margin. The other play that was real key is they hit Kenyon Mosley down the sideline for a 38-yard gain, and Justin Good, the safety, the last line of defense, knocks him out at the 2. They could have tied the game there. Bloomfield, 4th and goal to go from the 7. Rogelio Gonzalez gets sacked. Taos celebrates their first football championship ever in the school's history. And believe me, to get Taos head coach Art Abreu for an interview, I had to wade through about 500 people. I'd almost get him, and about 200 more people, it seemed, I'm making that up, would go to him and hug him. And it was a big, huge moment. It really was. His grandfather, Leland, the legendary Penasco coach, the legendary Taos coach, is on the field with them. They hug. They share the blue trophy. They Gatorade douse him, even though it was freezing temperature, but he couldn't tell that he even felt it. Right. So just a great moment out there, and congratulations to the Taos Tigers. They came through when they needed to, and it was a big, big win in the press box, and Josh Brown can attest to this. Heated press box, thank God. But they had about 25 people in there, 25 people. Glenn Rosales of the Journal North crowded in next to me to get his work done. And I'm telling you, I've never seen a press box more crowded in my life.
Well, I've been in more crowded press boxes that were smaller, but I haven't been in one here.
Oh yeah, you know what? I was thinking about the UNM press box when I do PA for baseball, and that's pretty crowded. You've been in there a million times.
That one comes to mind, actually,
right.
Ed, and you and I have been cramped in there before. So
this one here, like I said, they said they built it 5 years ago. It used to be a wooden plank press box, and we've seen plenty of those too. Mm-hmm. But I've just never seen so many people that probably had no, business being in there. They were school officials and some fans.
Right.
I'll tell you what, thank God it was Will Powell, our cameraman, had about 7 layers of sweats and jackets. And, Will Powell and Josh Brown, the producer, I can't tell you enough about what a great job he did. And, we mentioned the producers, Alden Iwani, Josh Luna, Jason Pohl, and the cameraman. Those guys really, really work hard, and I saw it again on Saturday. Josh Brown trying to get the stream. He's doing everything he can, working with the school, and our producers and directors. Without them, there's no show. So another shout out and kudos to them, because without them, we can't go.
I'm glad that you shouted out Josh Luna, because he snuck in here and I didn't recognize him before. So
yeah, he's so quiet about things that he does a great job too. He was my producer last night, and he's not a man of a lot of words, but he just gets the job done.
Yep. Well, let's look at some of these games right now. First of all, we'll talk about the one that Ed just talked about. There is, well, actually, this is 3A. So we'll do 3A first. Dexter, 22, Robertson, 12. Number 2 against number 5. Robertson with a great run. They've won championships in the past, and they ran into a buzzsaw on Dexter.
They did, and Robertson's 4th consecutive appearance, I believe, in the championship game. And they beat Hope. So I thought, hey, you know what? They could go up to Dexter. Richard Tripp loved Dexter. He really did. So the Demons come away with the 3A championship.
There you look at some of the action there, and what a sight.
Look at that field. I love it. That's the old-fashioned field.
That's the old-fashioned field where the grass is brown because it's wintertime.
That's right. That's right. I haven't seen a field like that in a long time.
And you could tell that during the good season, it's a well-manicured field.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. I don't think I've ever been to Dexter. I'm not even sure where it is. And I've lived in New Mexico all my life.
Well, it's a matter of big plays here, and you see a good cut into the end zone, and that broke a 6-6 tie to make it 12-6, and and it was a situation all Saturday where you see great crowds.
You know what? Another great crowd here at Dexter here in the blue, and I really thought, to be honest with you, Scott, I thought Robertson, after that big win against Hope, that they might pull it off. But give the Demons credit. As I mentioned, Richard Tripp was very complimentary of them all year long, and there they go at the final whistle here.
Yeah, that was a big turnover right there, and then with the score 12-6, Dexter falls on the ball there, and a couple of breaks here and there, and Dexter took advantage of it.
22-12, the final, and Dexter Demons champions. I don't know when the last time they won a championship, but they did a great job all year long. They really did.
So there was a touchdown. Final score 22-12. Confetti going off.
I haven't seen that in a long time.
How about that?
Yeah, that's
at a smaller school.
That's something I haven't seen.
That is really cool, as they are the 3A champions, the Dexter Demons. You see the DD at midfield, and you see it on the screen, and there you see the score one more time, 22-12. Let's go to 4A now. And 4A, this is the game, as we'll look at the score here momentarily. There is a score that you were at, Ed. 4A, 14-7. Thing I wanted to point out before we look at the highlights, looking at the final totals of the yards, low yardage on both sides, according to Glenn Rosales and his totals. You would have thought that Bloomfield won this game by at least 10 points.
They limited, Bloomfield's defense limited Taos running back Jonathan Garcia to 38 yards on 15 carries when he came in with 1,495, averaging 148 yards a game, I believe. So Bloomfield's defense, and then when Justin Good went back to pass, he tried several bootlegs. Oh my goodness, he must have been sacked 5 times. And when I tell you that he got sacked, they put some hits on him. They were hitting very hard. So they really stifled the Taos offense, and Bloomfield's offense, not much better, a little bit. They have a few more total yards, but it wasn't an offensive game, Scott. It was one of those defensive-minded NFC Central black and blue games back in the day, black and blue division.
Well, before we break out the highlight, well, actually, we'll break out the highlights right now.
Watch this reverse here.
We'll get back to what I was going to ask you when we see the
Starburst, they call
again.
this, the reverse that they did. And look at it, well executed. How beautifully executed it was. Justin Good, the last handoff to Jonathan Garcia, who goes 80 yards, the opening kickoff. So we're thinking right there that we're going to have a high-scoring game. Little did we know that it was not going to be like that. Here's the pass from Rogelio Gonzalez to Noah Goudelet, scrambling to his right, and Goudelet 2 steps behind the defender for the Bloomfield touchdown. That tied it. That tied it there, and I think the last score was here's a punt that Goudelet whiffed on and recovered in the end zone by Noah Armijo of Taos. And that's the final margin right there. And
wow.
There's Art Abreu, the Taos head coach. What a celebration that was. I'm sure he's still on a high 3 days later.
Wow. So that reminds me of a couple of years ago when the Rio Rancho beat Mayfield in the championship game on a bad snap at Rio Rancho for the game winner. And that's a weird way to win a game, where you get a touchdown on a bad snap and a whiff punt, and there's the total. But what I was going to ask you, Ed, looking at these totals, 143 yards, not a lot, but 96, how did Taos win the game outside of what we just saw?
You know, the second half, they came out as tied 7-7 at the half. And so momentum, both teams exchanged 3 or 4 punts. And I did mention that, the key punt or key play was Goudelet had punted before he whiffed on the first punt. They moved him back on a legal motion. And then he's punting from his own end zone. And it wasn't blocked. He just missed the ball. And afterward, Bloomfield head coach Bob Alcorn said, hey, those things happen. You know, you don't want them to happen, but it did. And unfortunately for Goudelet, it happened at an opportune time. They got the ball back, and they just couldn't. Taos' defense, give them credit as well. They played well when they needed to. And, you know, again, they came up with an opportunity on a whiff punt. They took advantage of it. They recovered in the end zone for the final. And I'll tell you one thing. Taos head coach Art Abreu will never, again, great moments in the North. The Abreu name up there, it means a lot. So when Art Abreu wins a championship, the whole family, the whole North celebrates, really, it seems like.
Let's go to another game here, 5A, and this was a domination by Roswell over Los Lunas, and all Neowani and I were talking about this game, and you know, it was pretty much one-sided. It was a windy day, so Los Lunas could not rely on the big play in terms of the big pass, and mano a mano, it was Roswell all the way.
Well, you know what? It was something that I'm sure the weather did play a factor. They love to throw. As a matter of fact, I talked to Jeff Lynn last week for Enchantment Sports, the Roswell head coach, and he thought that Kate Benavides was more of a quarterback that Jeremy Maupin, the Los Lunas coach, liked to use anyway, because he's more of a drop-back quarterback, more of an Artesia quarterback where Maupin came from. But this one here, and Jeremy Maupin had said Roswell has great team speed. He had mentioned Justin Carrasco, who had 120 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. So give Roswell credit. They really put it on Los Lunas. I didn't expect that. I don't think you did either. Not to that margin, but give the Coyotes credit.
Not to that margin. I thought the Roswell was going to win, but I thought it was going to be a closer game. And just look at that running. And, you know, when Roswell is getting those lanes wide open, having those long runs, and kind of surprised to see empty seats there, but that was on the visiting side, of course. But, you know, Roswell, if they get big plays, they're tough to beat. And we've seen that all year long, Ed, where they get big play after big play, and they continue to beat teams. And this was a broken ending of a play that turned into a touchdown.
I think that was Jace Reese on that return, and Jeremy Maupin, Los Lunas head coach, had mentioned him as well.
The fake end around and the standard handoff, and that's what Roswell does. Misdirection, they'll do that all game long, and then you had a safety, and it went from bad to worse.
They beat them earlier in the year, and you know, I thought Los Lunas would come out with a better effort. Having lost the first one, they had avenged their loss to Goddard earlier in the year, but the Coyotes were just too much. Look at that, pick 6 there, and they just couldn't get that vaunted passing game going. They love to throw the post, and I don't know if they got Vacu on one or Andrew Garcia. I don't think Los Lunas I'm talking about. I don't think that they did. So total domination by Roswell in all facets of the game.
So Roswell would lead 42-0 before Los Lunas would get a touchdown to get on the board. But man, just too much Roswell. You know, the championship was dominated almost like the way Artesia would dominate games.
Yes, and you know, again, give the Coyotes credit. I happened to talk to Jeff Lynn, as I mentioned, and I think he expected a closer game. I think Los Lunas head coach Jeremy Maupin, to his credit, who I think I think he's one of the best coaches in the state. I don't think there's any doubt that he is. After the game, he said, hey, I didn't have them ready, it's on me. So he didn't take all the credit when they won, but when they lost, he took the blame. So, and I don't know if that's all true, because they wouldn't have got there without him. There's no, think about it, one thing, Scott, they lost Nick Garland, the best quarterback in 5A, and they still got to the championship.
So we'll take a break, and then we'll look at the 6A after the break. But first, here on the Sports Desk, it is the Plays of the Week, brought to you by DreamStop.
There's a big right, and then an uppercut for Benavides.
Oh!
Jamal, man, this beat is crazy.
It's picked off. It's Nava's third interception. Send it in, Dominic Nava.
Big left hand there by Aguilera. Oh, and look at this. Right away, guys. Right here to the second. And Aguilera is going to try to finish it right now. Kenny with a right and then another left. Lucero's in trouble, guys. Back to the corner.
To Bob Alcorn for the call. 5-step drop, steps up in the pocket, throws long, he's got a receiver, open, Goudelet's out there, touchdown. Touchdown to Noah Goudelet.
Play action down the middle, and it's O'Toole, and he's loose. Touchdown.
Set down for him. Kick is taken by one of the up men for the Tigers. Garcia's got a little bit of room. One man to beat. Garcia could be gone for an opening kickoff return, and they reverse it, and Garcia will score. 80-yard touchdown return for Jonathan Garcia.
There's Williams again. And again, off left tackle. Look out. Shot out of a cannon. DeAndre Williams for the touchdown. And down goes Rodriguez.
The fighting pride of Albuquerque, New Mexico, the Pitbull, Josh Torres.
Here's Amaro, gets the snap, facing pressure. He's got to tuck it, he's scrambling, still scrambling, dumps it off, pass is caught. It's Irigoyen, he's still going, touchdown Demons.
They'll have to punt it away. Almost got to it. Instead it'll get to the deep man all the way back at the 8-yard line. And that is Reese. Reese looking for the edge. Look out, Reese out in front. There's one more defender to beat. Now he cuts back up the middle at the 50. Reese is still on his feet. Santa Maria! Reese is racing down the sideline. Touchdown, Roswell. What an amazing return.
High school sports are back. The 2018-19 season kicks off, and you could watch every Proview Network broadcast live on the NFHS network. Every moment, from every game, from every sport, including all NMAA state championships. Get your highly discounted monthly pass now. Go to ProviewNetworks.com and sign up. Watch New Mexico's best. Don't sacrifice quality and flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network. Get into the game with Garden Swartz Team Sales. They have everything you need, from screen printing, embroidery, and digital printing services, high school letterman jackets, and all high school and club uniforms, and individual and team apparel with the most reliable brands like Speedline, Rollins, and Wilson. And don't forget to check out the latest F7 Shut helmet. It's all at Garden Swartz Team Sales. Give them a call, 505-884-1234. Garden Swartz Team Sales.
Is this my car?
State Farm knows that for every one of those moments,
This is ridiculous!
there's one of these.
Is this my car? What? This is ridiculous.
This can't be happening!
This can't be happening.
Oh, it's happening, sweetheart.
Oh, it's happening, sweetheart.
Shut up.
Shut up!
That's why State Farm is there, with car insurance for when things go wrong, but also here with car loans to help life go right. State Farm.
Talk to State Farm agent Marty Size or Michelle Rudolph in Albuquerque today.
Sadie's is a proud supporter of New Mexico high school sports and athletics, and we here at Proview Networks would like to thank Sadie's for their continued support in helping us bring you all of your New Mexico high school sports coverage.
Welcome back here to the Sports Desk. Scott Coletti along with Ed Nunez. We are talking sports, and we are going to go ahead and talk about the 6A championship game. And people were thinking it was going to be a domination, Ed. They didn't know which team was going to dominate. This wasn't even close. This was a pure domination from the opening snap to the end of the game. La Cueva, look at the total yards, 561 to 258, and a lot of those yards for Cleveland in the second half.
Well, you know what we talked about, who controls the line of scrimmage, and it's usually the Cleveland Storm, but not on this day. The Bears control both lines of scrimmage, and you know, La Cueva, as you mentioned, held Cleveland. Look at it, as you mentioned, the total yards. Cleveland usually has 400 and plus yards offense. I don't think I've seen them in a very long time have less than 300. So that should tell you the story of the game right there. And I think the other thing is this. We had mentioned La Cueva was struggling towards the end of the year. You know, they're winning games here and there. This one here, I read the paper. They had a real chip on their shoulder from last year, and they kept saying, we need to finish. So Brandon Back, hats off to the La Cueva Bears. He did a great coaching job all year long, and they really put it to the Storm. At Cleveland, by the way.
Well, that was kind of a parting of the Red Sea that I was going to talk about. DeAndre Williams on the first series, he would go all the way down to the 10-yard line, which would set up his 8-yard touchdown run, and that would get La Cueva on the board by a score of 7-0. And then it was Cleveland trying to mount a comeback, and they would have a little pass play and get inside the 50, but lost the ball, and La Cueva would get the ball back. 23 yards later, it was Nas Robertson getting a catch from Dylan Summer, and it was 14-0 midway through the first quarter, as nice pass on the left side to Connor O'Toole, who had a couple of drops early in the ball game, but came back, and that was a good play by Trey Watson. But you saw the hitting there. The hits just kept coming. La Cueva led 17-0 before that Cleveland touchdown, as it was a nice run by Colton Madison of 2 yards, but that was probably the backbreaker, the Connor O'Toole play, as that was a 50-yarder to answer. And you had an interception. Dylan Summer throwing a pass that was ill-advised, but Cleveland really couldn't do anything with it, as it would be a fumble and a recovery. But then, you know, Cleveland, every time they tried to get down, this was a play where it was short of the goal line and they didn't get the touchdown. And this was a play, Dylan Summer on a mistake, an interception. It was a nice run back by Trey Ortega for a touchdown. That made it 24-14. But then right back, 72-yard run by DeAndre Williams, and this pretty much was the backbreaker.
357 yards rushing, I believe you told me.
Yeah, and he was just unstoppable in this game, as there was a safety, a bad snap. It would go into the end zone, and it would be a safety, and that would be the final margin of victory, 33-14. In favor of La Cueva. The celebration was on, but I'll tell you what, a key in my mind in this ball game, Ed, as you look at the celebration here, was on Cleveland's second possession after La Cueva had gone up 7-0. There was a pass play in the flat where I think it was Trey Watson, made a catch, and he just got destroyed by one of the La Cueva players. And after that, it seemed like Cleveland was hesitant to make a play because they knew they were going to lay the wood.
Well, you know what?
And it was a cold. The wind had to be about 40, 45 miles an hour, and it was bitterly cold. They said it was 30 degrees, so that means with wind chill, it was probably about 10 degrees.
So the hits hurt.
The hits hurt. And you could see
Alligator
after
Army,
that play, there was a similar play and a similar almost outcome with the La Cueva player right there and the Cleveland player ordinarily who would go up for it, kind of laid back and let the ball drop.
Alligator Army.
And I knew right there, you know, it was in their head because that's the whole thing. La Cueva was hitting so hard it wasn't even funny.
Think about it too. We always say this too. It's hard to win at Lightning Bolt Stadium. Almost, you know, always not impossible, right? But it's a very tough venue to go in there, especially for the 6A championship and win. And La Cueva dominated on both sides of the ball. So, and I think reading about Coach Back and the mission from last year, they really we're going to finish, and they did. They thought they let the play. They only lost 14-7 in last year's championship. So in 2 championship games, they gave up 21 points in some consecutive years.
Well, Colton Madison was the leading rusher for Cleveland. You see the 80 yards there and a touchdown. But Davison with 150 yards. And you got Dylan Summer. He was actually the quarterback with 2 picks, 147 yards, 6 of 17. Not great, but he had 2 touchdowns. And, of course, you know, both of those were individual efforts by Nas Robertson and Connor O'Toole. But the big story there was DeAndre Williams. So this is the one game where you think Cleveland really could have used their star running back.
Well, of course, you know, there's no doubt. And, you know,
I told Alden Iowati before the show that, you know, if they were both on the field, I don't think you see a pass in this game. I just think it's DeAndre Williams against their star.
You know, you mentioned that 6 of 17 for Summer, but DeAndre Williams, 357 rushing yards. You don't need to pass the ball very much, and it's cold anyway and windy, so it negates the passing a lot. It did, and it did in this game as well. Jeff Davison, the sophomore quarterback for Cleveland, I remember talking to Heath Ridenauer earlier in the year, and he said, hey, he's 15 years old. There's a learning curve. Even with all that, the Storm still got to the championship game without Dorian Lewis. Now, we can go on. I'm not a guy to do that, and I know Heath Ridenauer isn't either, about ifs and buts and this guy here. He wasn't. That's the bottom line. So, you know, it might have been different. He'll be back next year.
I'm not
no,
either,
I know you're not.
The only reason why I bring it up, excuse me, is the fact that on that day, it was a running day.
Right.
You know, if you're throwing the ball up in the air, you're taking a chance. I mean, Dominic Camacho, who's one of the best kickers, if not the best kicker in the metro area, hung a couple of punts that actually looked like they hit a wall and went backwards.
Because of the wind.
Because of the wind. The wind was that strong that day. It was going towards the northern stands, the La Cueva stands, so it was a kind of a crosswind when you you know, but it was still, if you were going to the right side of the field, Camacho boomed a 47, I believe it was a 45-yard field goal, and he could have made it from 65. The other way, he probably couldn't have kicked a 30-yard field goal because it was that strong. Having said that, it was one of those days where both teams could have just relied on the run and not the pass. Now, the one thing, looking at those stats that I didn't mention, is Dylan Summer didn't complete a pass in the second half. All those completions were in the first half. They ran the ball. He had the interception for the pick six, but for the most part, they ran the ball the entire second half.
That tells you something right there. So
they just gave the ball to number 11, let him run.
357 yards rushing. I don't think you need to do anything else. So Summer threw 17 passes in the first half. He didn't throw any more. No, he probably threw a couple, right?
I think he had 4 incompletions plus the interception in the second half. Okay. So he threw the ball 4 times, but didn't have a completion in the second half.
I think to your point, I get your point. It's well made. You know, it is a running game and a running day. And yes, I think if Dorian Lewis had been in the game, and he'll return next year, so it would have been interesting to see him out there. And it's too bad that he wasn't. But give Cleveland credit that they came that far in the championship game and were favored, heavily favored by a lot of people. Including me.
That's why I'm raving about La Cueva's performance, because it wasn't just surprising, it was stunning. Because the team that you thought was going to be maybe outplayed the team in a style that was perfect for Lightning Bolt Stadium. because of the wind.
Stunning in its domination on both sides of the ball. So yes.
I mean, the hits on the defense and just the blocking on the offense, and that blocking never stopped. And the one thing that Cleveland could not stop LaCueva on, and LaCueva realizing that just went to it over and over again, the jet sweep with the receivers. It started with Connor O'Toole. They brought Nas Robertson in to do the same thing, and they would gain at least 15 to 20 yards on each try.
And you never see that happening in the Storm. You know, their defensive front is usually, and usually, if anything, Cleveland's offense, which is multifaceted in its own way, is doing that to the opponent. So all the things that Cleveland usually does, were done to them.
Well, to show how much of a surprising domination this was, you know David Williams, my partner on the radio. I mean, he doesn't get shocked or stunned or surprised too often. This was a day that he was really shocked at what he was seeing.
I think a lot of people were. I mean, 33-14. I didn't expect that. I don't know that anybody. When's the last time we saw Cleveland get beat by that? I think it was last season when they played LaCueva in a regular season game at Wilson Stadium. If I'm right, I could be wrong. I thought they put it on pretty good then too. But you don't see that happen very often to the Storm. And, Heath Ridenauer, gracious after the game, said, hey, give LaCueva all the credit. They came in here, played a great game. He didn't have any excuses. He doesn't need to make any. That's
right.
A winning program. And one thing's for sure, we know this, the Storm will be back in contention next year, the year after. As long as Heath Ridenauer is the head man there, they're going to be right there, always.
We will take a break. We still have a couple more segments here on the Sports Desk.
Dreamstyle Remodeling has been wowing homeowners in New Mexico since 1989. Selected as Best Custom Home Remodeler for 3 consecutive years by readers of the Albuquerque Journal, we're also your exclusive provider for top home improvement brands like Renewal by Anderson, Four Seasons, Blaze King, and many others. Founded and headquartered in Albuquerque, Dreamstyle Remodeling is family-owned and now employs more than 500 people across the southwestern U.S. In fact, we've helped more than 60,000 homeowners improve their home in New Mexico, Arizona, California, Idaho, and West Texas. We're committed to providing a superior customer experience. We've earned 4.6 stars with hundreds of online reviews and have an A+ with the BBB. Dreamstyle Remodeling is a proud supporter of UNM Athletics. Visit our beautiful 10,000 square foot showroom at 1460 Renaissance Boulevard across from Sam's Club or DreamStyleRemodeling.com to make your home remodeling dreams come true.
Car Crafters, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Are you sure we're supposed to be doing this?
Don't worry, I've watched him do it 1,000 times. Come on, what's the worst that can happen?
No! Bad dog!
Hi, welcome to Car Crafters. What happened?
Don't worry, we'll make it like it never happened.
Car Crafters, it's like it never happened.
This is Coach Borrego of the Charlotte Hornets. Hello to all you parents out there in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I want to congratulate 38 years for the AYBL. You guys are doing a great job. You've shaped a lot of lives, young men and women, and you'll continue to do that. Parents, get involved, sign your kid up. It's a great program. It helped shape who I am today, helped shape me as a basketball player, as a coach. So get out there, sign them up. Have a great season. Good luck to everybody.
Talk to State Farm agent Greg Shamus today.
The Barley Room, a proud sponsor of Proview Networks for over 9 years, is pleased to introduce Black Iron Catering. From weddings and family reunions to birthdays and office parties, Black Iron Catering is perfect for any event. Contact Jamie at 505-459-8259 and book your event today. Black Iron Catering. Let us bring our kitchen to you.
And we are back here, Sports Desk, here on Comcast Channel 26, Proview Networks, and of course Facebook Live. Also, after the show, it is streamed almost immediately on YouTube, and they're still working on a lot of different avenues, so coverage is not a problem, man.
No, it's not, and it hasn't been since I believe we started doing the show live in August. So yeah, it's You can catch it a lot of different places. And the guys, I'm glad to say too, and they do the Proview rundown Mondays or Wednesdays and Fridays.
Yep.
Those guys are the stars, the crew and the zoo, and Adam Deal. That's their show, man. And I happened to be off one day, a couple Fridays ago, and I was watching, and boy, I got a big kick out of the creativity that the guys, the crew in the zoo were doing, and the graphics that they had up in the background, and some of the things they were saying. It really was funny, and I'm glad they're getting their shot. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Alden Iowani is the leader of the zoo. Yeah, he's nodding his head. He's not on the air with us, but he's nodding his head in agreement. So Alden does a great job. And hey, I want to point out, I mentioned that the show is put on right after, stream live. That's all Alden.
You know what? Yeah, Alden, as we mentioned, Alden Iowani, Jason Pohl, Josh Brown, Josh Luna. They all work very, very hard. And you know what? I think the involvement of Proview since I've worked here. We used to be back in the studio over there on Wyoming, on 3rd Street for a while, and we've been here for about, 3 years, I think 3-4 years. So to watch them with the creativity and the graphics that they've come up with, and the things that they've done for our show, for Sebastian Noel's show, for Richard Tripp's show, the Procrastinators, they do a lot of different things. And I think that they deserve the credit, just the love that we're giving them here.
Hey, what's with the Procrastinators? How come we're not in the spaceship, Ed?
I've only watched a little bit of it. Khalil's
they have a great setup because it's set up like they're in a spaceship.
Khalil is very creative. I've watched a couple of the segments, and I may not get them all, but I'm starting to say, okay, the spaceship. You mentioned all the things.
We just have a desk right here. I mean, these guys, they're flying in style.
Oh man, and it looks good.
It looks really good.
It looks real. So. Yeah, tune into that show.
No, talk about a creative show. That is it.
You know what? He's really taken off. They've had an idea, and Scott Blair used to be a member, and I worked with Scott Blair when I was doing the Gladiators, and Scott Blair has since moved on. But they've been together for a while, and they shelved it for a bit, and then I know they went back to writing and creating. So it's a great show. You may not get the whole thing until you watch maybe 2 or 3 episodes. Then you're like, oh, okay, all right.
That's the thing. You got to watch it at least once to get it. And once you get it, you're hooked.
Oh yeah, you follow it, and then you're like, okay, this is they're making fun of a lot of different things in the NFL, a lot of press conferences. I'd love to see him do Belichick. I haven't seen that one yet. Bill Belichick's press conferences are notoriously, he doesn't have a lot to say, and it's funny. It's really funny. You don't know. Just get ready for Cincinnati. You just one more answer.
My favorite answer is, it's Friday. That's my favorite all-time.
Or
it's Friday.
Or I'm not the doctor. I don't know. That one. Right. And he's always said with a monotone. There's not a smile, and you know what he's really thinking. And he has to do those conferences. It's part of his contract.
Yeah.
But he hates the press as far as doing those interviews.
Well, actually, in the NFL, it's part of the NFL contract.
Part of the contract.
So you have to do it per the NFL, not per your team. You have to do it for the NFL.
Can you imagine back in the day? Now, Tom Landry was one of the greatest coaches in NFL history. They didn't have to do him then. Now, Landry probably would have been as boring as they came because his mind was all about football. It wasn't about answering questions. I've got to go, and I've got, even when they scored a touchdown, if you remember, his reaction was his mind was already on the next play. There was no time for celebration. So I would have loved to have seen Tom Landry be bombarded with all these questions that people would probably have been like, no, we don't want him back because he's boring. He's vanilla as far as talking to people. Now, football, strategy, still one of the greatest coaches that ever lived. So it would have been interesting. That would have been very interesting.
Speaking of interesting, back to the high school scene, what surprised you outside of obviously La Cueva dominating Cleveland in the championship game? Sum up the season, Ed, in terms of what you saw.
I think just that. And James Yoda's talked about, your partner on the high school show on ESPN Radio, talked about the injuries that were suffered by Gabe Smith, Dorian Lewis, Nick Garland. There's injuries and stuff. I'll say this about Las Lunas again. Nick Garland was injured against Cibola, in their thrilling game. They beat Cibola 38-35. So you're thinking, okay, you know what? That's the best quarterback in 5A. They're done. Not only were they not done, Las Lunas head coach Jeremy Maupin found a way to keep winning week after week. He plugged in Cade Benavides, a drop back passer, and they won 6 in a row before they finally lost the championship. Surprising there. St. Pius under Dave Montoya had a great run until they lose Derek Rivera, the quarterback. Then they throw in some quarterbacks, and you can't really do that in a playoff game. They lose to Bloomfield. but they had a great season. Cibola, we talked about them on the selection show. Were they going to sneak in? They did. They won a playoff game. I thought they were a pretty good team. Volcano Vista, man, speed to burn. Speed to burn. I didn't know Jake Deathridge played basketball. He had 10 points last night. So I thought they surprised me a little bit. El Dorado even going up to Las Cruces, Mayfield, and winning one playoff game, and Gabe Smith, available for the first half, not available for the second half. That kind of surprised me a little bit. But overall, I think, La Cueva again losing the championship last season to Manzano 14-7. I still favored Cleveland in that game. I thought they know how to get it done. It's at Lightning Bolt Stadium. But one thing that Brandon Back and his team said, we've got a chip on our shoulder. We're going to finish. They did in dominating fashion. You never see the Storm dominated like that on both lines. We always said this. I always say this on the show. You asked, and Steve Davis has asked, and you said this too. The game is won at the line of scrimmage, right? They've controlled the trenches on the offensive side and the defensive lines, both sides. On Saturday, they were thoroughly dominated, dominated. James Yodis' article said that in the paper. That they could. I talked to a Cleveland Storm fan yesterday, and he said they could barely gain 2 yards. Yeah. And okay, what powers their passing game is their running game, right? And although Madison did get 80 yards on 17 carries, I think that's misleading. I do.
It's very misleading because it was on a lot of carries, and I mean he had to work for every yard he got.
I think one of the things
I give him credit because he had to work for everything.
I think one of the things you mentioned though. That I wasn't there because I was in Taos. But when you mentioned that hit that they hit Trey Watson on, and so the rest of the game is like, oh man, do I want to get my ribs broke here? I mean, alligator arming over the middle, kind of pulling it in. They're not scared. The Storm isn't scared of anybody. But when you get hit like that, I've never played football. There's a reason why, probably because I don't want to get hit like that. But I think it did change the course of the game as far as the Storm offense.
It was changed mentally because one of the things. Here's a stat for you, Ed. La Cueva's been to the state championship game 6 times. They're 5-1 now. Their only loss was last year, a 14-7 game to Manzano. Cleveland just suffered their first loss. They're 2-1, and it seemed like a team that was out to prove themselves. They heard all the press, they heard all the releases, they saw all the stories, how Cleveland had the best line and everything else, and the front line was just energized the entire game. I think in about midway through the third quarter, I think depth-wise, I think Cleveland was actually starting to wear them down a little bit, but by then it was way, way too late.
I think that's absolutely an accurate statement because no one dominates the Storm at the line of scrimmage. I've never seen it happen, ever, except maybe, again, we mentioned La Cueva last year might have done that when they played in the regular season. But other than that, it's the Storm imposing its offensive will and defensive will on you, and usually coming away victorious. But as I mentioned, you know Heath Ridenauer. He's one of the most classiest guys you could ever meet. He's a great coach, but he's a better person. I've talked to him several times, and he's always been accessible. And always says this too: "Hey, thanks for being here. Thanks for covering the game." And you're like, "Man, no, thank you, right?" But so we know that they'll be back, and yes, the La Cueva Bears. Brandon back. Maybe we can get Coach back in here. That'd be great if we could. But I think that's the thing you asked me about to sum it up. And I think that their domination in that last game stunned everybody. Stunned me. Stunned the whole metro area. I didn't think they'd win like that. I thought maybe it'd be a lot closer, but give the La Cueva Bears all the credit.
Let's take a break, and we will come back with one more segment of the Sports Desk.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walking to the cashier, order up a root beer and a #1. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
The service department at Gala Chevrolet is clean, modern, and ready for you. Our master technicians service every make and model, including certified service on any GM vehicle. Service done right the first time, every time, right here at the all-new Gala Chevrolet.
Car Crafters, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Are you sure we're supposed to be doing this?
Don't worry, I've watched him do it 1,000 times. Come on, what's the worst that can happen?
No! Bad dog!
Hi, welcome to Car Crafters. What happened?
Don't worry, we'll make it like it never happened.
Car crafters, it's like it never happened.
The Sports Desk is proudly presented by Car Crafters. It's like it never happened.
High school sports are back. The 2018-19 season kicks off, and you could watch every Proview Network broadcast live on the NFHS network. Every moment, from every game, from every sport, including all NMAA state championships. Get your highly discounted monthly pass now. Go to ProviewNetworks.com and sign up. Watch New Mexico's best.
Don't sacrifice quality and flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Get into the game with Garden Swartz Team Sales. They have everything you need, from screen printing, embroidery, and digital printing services, high school letterman jackets, and all high school and club uniforms, and individual and team apparel with the most reliable brands like Speedline, Rollins, and Wilson. And don't forget to check out the latest F7 Shut helmet. It's all at Garden Swartz Team Sales. Give them a call, 505-884-1234. Garden Swartz Team Sales.
Is this my car?
State Farm knows that for every one of those moments,
This is ridiculous!
there's one of these.
Is this my car? What? This is ridiculous.
This can't be happening!
This can't be happening.
Oh, it's happening, sweetheart.
Oh, it's happening, sweetheart.
Shut up.
Shut up!
That's why State Farm is there, with car insurance for when things go wrong, but also here with car loans to help life go right. State Farm.
Talk to State Farm agent Marty Size or Michelle Rudolph in Albuquerque today.
Sadie's is a proud supporter of New Mexico high school sports and athletics, and we here at Proview Networks would like to thank Sadie's for their continued support in helping us bring you all of your New Mexico high school sports coverage.
We are back here on the Sports Desk. Scott Coletti along with Ed Nunez. We have Aldney Iwani, our fine director, and one more segment here, Ed, and they've already started games, but we'll look at the first coaches poll. I don't have a graphic for it. I just got it this morning. Didn't even know that they had a poll out yet, but Manny Lucero sent it out. And in 3A, it's Robertson, Santa Fe Indian, Tucumcari, Tehachapi, and Hatch Valley. St. Mike's is number 10. You got 4A. This is girls. Gallup, Las Lunas, Highland, Kirtland Central, and Hope Christian at number 5. In 5A, you've got Hobbs, West Mesa, team that you saw last night, Carlsbad, Mayfield, and Cibola. La Cueva at number 6, El Dorado number 7, Piedra Vista number 8, Volcano Vista number 9, and Rio Rancho number 10. On the boys' side in 3A, St. Mike's number 1, Sandia Prep is number 2, West Las Vegas number 3, Robertson 4, Santa Fe Indian number 5, and in 4A, Hope Christian, guess where they're at? Number 1. Las Lunas number 2, Gallup number 3, Belen is number 4, Espanola Valley 5. You got Valley at number 7. Number 6 is Silver Valley. Then number 8, St. Pius. Artesia is number 9. Bernalillo is number 10. Then in 5A, you got Cleveland number 1. No surprise there. El Dorado is going to be very good. They're number 2. Volcano Vista 3rd. Trisco Heritage, the defending state champion, at 6A. Now in 5A, they are number 4. Las Cruces number 5. You can never count out William Benjamin's teams. You got La Cueva number 6, Rio Rancho 7, Manzano 8, Santa Fe is 9, and Sandia is number 10.
There's a lot of preseason rankings there. I think take a look at Volcano Vista girls. They've got some young freshmen that are coming up. Watch them. I had West Mesa last night. They played Rio Grande, and Rio Grande head coach Corey Collins trying to build a program there. It's hard to get numbers there. He's doing the absolute best. And the game ended with the way you thought it would. I mean, West Mesa is going to dominate that. This is the third, fourth year that Maya Rivas has been together. Jaden Castellano, Esperanza Vados, So is this the year that they break through and get that blue trophy? Upset in the quarters or the semis last year by Rio Rancho. Scott Peterson does a great job out there at Rio Rancho. Last night, Richard Tripp and I were texting back and forth. Watch out for Highland and Ford. Think about this too. Okay, so Highland moves to 4A, so does Valley. In the mix with Hope, Espanola Valley, you know, that's quite a mixture there because you know, Hope's dominated, right? They've dominated, and Jim Murphy in an article earlier in the year said he wasn't sure that they, could still dominate the way they do. The thing about Jim Murphy, they've won 15, and he's still hungry for 15 more. It's not as if he's saying, I'm kind of happy, I'm content. Hey, this guy is as hungry to win every game that any coach I've ever seen. And he does it well, does a great job. But I'm kind of interested to see Highland won their game last night. Highland boys beat Cibola. So do they compete better moving down? I'm interested to see. Valley head coach Joe Coleman doesn't have a lot of starters, any players back. He has to build from the ground up. But how does Hope play with Espanola Valley? How do they play with Valley, with Highland? With more, a little bit more. But people have been saying this for years, right? Let's put them with more competition. They've beaten 6A teams before, several times. But people have been saying this. Let's put them. It doesn't matter where they're at. They won 15 anyway. No one's going to take that away. But people have been saying that for a long time. Let's put them. And I'm just interested to see. Again, Jim Murphy, a Hall of Fame coach. Every time that we see him coach, you've got a Hall of Famer there every night. Love the guy. So I don't have any doubt that the Huskies are going to compete. I'm just interested to see somebody else, kind of step up their game to compete with them.
Let's talk Lobo basketball now. You and I were talking off the air during the break. Tonight, they play at Las Cruces against the Aggies. The Aggies have won, believe it or not, 3 straight games, something that hasn't happened probably since way before Steve Alford got here. So what does Paul Weir do in his old building against a bunch of fans and students that are going to be screaming at him in the whole game? What do they do tonight?
They talked about that in the paper today. They don't think it'll be as bad last year as it was, last year with Coach Weir returning for the first time to the Pan American Center. There's still some harsh feelings, but I think one of the things that...
they called him the traitor.
No, they did.
No, they still do.
No, I know. And I'll tell you what, when he came here, you know how my feelings about the Aggies. It's a rival.
Right.
When he came here, I was kind of like, man, an Aggie coach, no way.
You were against it.
Yes, I was.
You were against it at first.
Yes, I was.
He won both of us over.
Big time.
The time that he had us on the air, because what you get from him talking is what you get in his coaching. He doesn't waver at all. He's so stubborn when it comes to coaching. How do you start a game? By deflections. And, yesterday the big talk was, well, how do you get, I heard Jeff Grammer saying, how do you get the starters the people who aren't starting, your leading scorers, to get deflections? Because obviously they don't care about deflections because they're not starting games, but they end up still being the leaders. So, he's got his quirks, he's got his ways, but the whole thing is once the players build on what he wants to do and buy into it, guess what? You have success.
I think you're absolutely right about that. But I think
seeing them in person, watching them play defensively, the way they play, if they can do that the whole year, they've got a shot to do some pretty good things. Now, the problem is, more than likely, unless you got some upsets happening against the bigger schools, it's going to be a one-bid league again. So basically, you're playing the whole season, and what's your prize? You have to win the tournament. Win the tournament or go home, because you're not going to make the NIT. You're not going to make anything else.
What's the RPI look at? Again, there's a lot of things that, formulas and things that are factored in. But Nevada, gosh, where do they rank? 5th? I mean, Nevada looks good, right? Yeah. So you're talking about, and we'll see. But I mean, they're loaded.
Right.
But I think tonight, and New Mexico State head coach Chris Jans talked about their defense.
Didn't they get rid of the RPI?
I don't know.
If they did, then that's going to doom the smaller schools and the smaller conferences, because guess what? Then all of a sudden you're going to have the 7th place team from the ACC get in over the 1st place team from the Mountain West.
Which shouldn't happen, right? It shouldn't happen. But
I'm being facetious, but that's the scary part of it. It could happen that way.
It could. We've seen stranger things happen.
Because there's so much bias towards the P5 now, it's not even funny.
No, you're I just had to laugh about that because we hear that all the time. But I think in tonight's game, going back to tonight's game, for New Mexico, they have to keep Harris. I mean, the Aggies came in here at the pit at Dreamstyle Arena and hit, 50% of their threes? Mm-hmm. They couldn't keep Harris in front of them. He blistered them. And again, I think Anthony Mathis is a good defensive guard, but he's used to guarding twos. That's where Jaquan Lyle would have come in and really helped in guarding. He's not here, so they have to go without him. Waiting in the wings is Carlton Bragg. But I think one of the things is this, even without him.
Who's on the road trip, by the way?
He's on the road trip.
They're hoping that they get
a late, and it's got to come soon, because the game.
I doubt if it'll happen, but at least he was actually given the waiver to go on the road trip, which is a good sign.
But even without him, they're still pretty big, right? They still got good size.
They got extremely good size. So that might be the biggest team outside of the teams that had Cameron Bairstow and Alex Kirk and those
Drew
guys.
Gordon. But they have to rebound better, and they have to keep the Aggie guards in front of them. But the Lobos did have a good comeback. You know, they were down 15 and came back. And Chris Jans, the Aggie coach, said that the Aggies must play better defense as well.
Right.
And it's a rivalry game. I expect, of course, I'm a Lobo guy, so I'm hoping the Lobos break through and win tonight. It's a tough, it's tough to go down to the Pan American Center. But the Lobos for a while had owned that series, and now, as you mentioned, the Aggies have won 3 in a row. So.
And finally, Ed, final topic, and we'll do this quickly. The Lobos retaining Bob Davie. No surprise there, but your thoughts?
Well, you know what, my son.
Football, that is.
Yeah, my son and I talked about it, and there really wasn't a lot of. What could they go? They couldn't afford a buyout. He wasn't going to come and say, I'll resign and accept a buyout. He wasn't going to do that. He made it clear in saying that I still think I'm the best guy for the job. I don't know what next season looks like, what the recruiting looks like. I wouldn't be surprised to see. Okay, here's what Eddie Nunez might have said. UNM Athletic Director Eddie Nunez said, okay, you're staying, but the position coaches, you have to change something. You can't go into next season with everything the same.
Right.
So don't be surprised if you see some staffing changes on, coaching changes on his staff. You can't go into next season saying we're 3-9, 7-game losing streak last 2 seasons. We're keeping everything the same. So I'm almost guaranteeing you in the next couple of months, maybe a couple of weeks, because they're starting recruiting, they want to start their program, something's going to give. I'm not going to say who, because that's not right, but something's going to give.
Yeah, and the thing is, even the 9-win season, they barely outscored opponents in the overall scoring, so it comes down to offense, and they really desperately need to shore up the defense. The defense has been a problem since the Loxley years.
Yes, it has, and I thought it was going to get better, and it didn't.
It's gotten a little better, but not better enough, especially when you put the defense on the field for as long as sometimes the quick strike offense does. It allows the defense to be on the field a long time, and that wears out the team.
Yeah, they have a hard time recruiting defensive linemen here for whatever reason. I think they need some offensive linemen. If you want, what are you going to run? What's your identity offensively? Is it going to be the spread? Are you going to go back to the triple option? And you know what, Coach?
It's got to be whatever is ball control oriented.
Got to go back to the triple option.
You got to go back to that.
Got to go back to that.
Even if it's just a wing, if it's just hand off and have a good blocking scheme, you got to keep the ball on the ground and keep the clock moving.
I think he needs to find his identity and find out what it is. Look, he's the coach here now. Okay, I'm a Lobo fan. I'm going with it. Okay, there's nothing we can do to change that. So I'm behind the program. Hopefully, it'll be better next year.
He's Ed Nunez. Want to thank Alden Iowani as always, and we will talk to you next week right here on the Sports Desk.